Okay, would like to call the
Start.
meeting to order. Then would you read the sunshine law?
Will do. This is the Thursday, January 20th, 2022 meeting of the Franklin Township Zoning Board of Adjustment. Franklin Township is operating under a declaration of state and local emergency due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, and has been determined that the public's attendance at meetings of the zoning board would pose a risk to their health, safety, and welfare. Therefore, this meeting has been relocated from the council chambers at the Franklin Township Municipal Building to a virtual meeting format and is being conducted utilizing virtual/remote telecommunications equipment in conformance with the directives of the state of New Jersey. The relocation of this virtual meeting of the zoning board was posted on the township's official newspaper, the Courier News, the township's website, and within the municipal building. This notice detailed the following means of public participation in this remote meeting: link to the virtual meeting via WebEx, and a call-in number for those without internet access. Public inspection of application materials was made available via the township website and or in the, and in the planning and zoning department in the municipal building. Formal action may be taken at this virtual meeting. Reminder to board members to please mute yourselves unless you wish to speak or to provide a vote, and please withhold questions until the applicant's witnesses have finished presenting. Instructions for public input: for those members of the public that are watching via WebEx who wish to speak, press the raise hand button. To use this feature, click on the participants icon in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, which will open a new participants window on the right side of your screen. In the lower right-hand corner of that window will be a hand icon. Click on that hand icon. For those members of the public that are listening via the call-in number who wish to speak, please press *3. At the appropriate time in the meeting, township staff will announce your name, unmute you, and you will have opportunity to provide comment. Please provide your name and address. If providing a statement, the board attorney will swear you in. After speaking, if on WebEx, please press the lower hand button. If calling in, please press *3 again.
Okay, would you call the roll?
Cheryl Bethia,
Here.
Rich Prokanic,
Here.
Joel Reese,
Yeah.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Here.
Robert Shepard,
Here.
Vasim Verdas,
Here.
Elizabeth Clarkin asked to be excused, and Chairman Thomas.
Here. Moving to resolutions. Dita Chandagural Cultural and Spiritual Foundation of USA, ZBA 18-00014, an extension of time. We have a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
Cheryl Bethia,
Yes.
Richard Prokanic,
Yes.
Joel Reese,
Yes.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
Robert Shepard,
Yes.
and Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Next, Dada Bhagwan Vignan Institute, ZBA 19-00040. The motion for approval.
I move to approve.
I'll second Gary.
Cheryl Bethia,
Yes.
Richard Prokanic,
Yes.
Joel Reese,
Yes.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
Robert Shepard,
Before I say I put my name in, I just want to say that was one of the longest resolutions I've seen in a long time, and I think that council did a great job putting that together. Yes.
Well, it's the longest one I've ever done.
It's
Chairman
the longest
Thomas.
hearing we've had.
Before I say yes, and I'll say that I guess we had enough information then to make a decision. But yes, I vote yes.
Okay.
Let's see. Next, we have Robin Mandakis, CBA 21-00017.
I'll move to accept.
Second.
Second.
Cheryl Bethia,
Yes.
Richard Prokanic,
Yes.
Joel Reese,
Yes.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
and Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Uh, Guru R. Rye Grocery, doing business as Apna Bazaar, ZBA 21-00021. Need a motion.
I move to accept.
Second.
Second.
Cheryl Bethia,
Yes.
Joel Reese,
Yes.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
Vasim Verdas,
yes,
and Chairman Thomas.
Yes. And finally, Gabriel and Luzilda Mercado, ZBA 19-00042.
I'll move to accept.
I second.
Cheryl Bethia,
Yes.
Richard Prokanic,
Yes.
Joel Reese,
Yes.
Alan Rich,
Yes.
Gary Rosenthal,
Yes.
Robert Shepherd,
Yes.
Chairman Thomas.
Yes. Okay, we can move then to our only item of business this evening. Neil Patel, ZBA 21-00005, a C variance in which the applicant proposes to construct a pool with surrounding 1,300 square foot patio, a sport court at 1,320 square feet, and add fencing along the side and rear property line at 159 Second Street, Somerset, block 424.04, lot 2129.17 in the R20 zone. We can bring in the applicant, and I don't know, is the applicant going to have representation?
Yes, he is.
I believe I brought everybody over. Let me see. Mr. Callie, are you there? Let's see. Mr. Callie, can you, I unmuted you.
Can you hear me now, Mark?
I can, for whatever reason, I can't bring you over. I brought over, Mr. Padalev and Mr. Ferrante as panelists. For some reason, I was not able to bring you over as a panelist, so we can hear you but not see you.
Okay. How about Neil Patel? Did you get him over? I see him as a panelist. Yeah. Okay. I have no problem with that since I'm not testifying. I don't mind not being on camera as long as my witnesses are. So we're okay proceeding if you are, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I defer to the board attorney.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We've done it before.
It's odd. I don't know. It was on WebEx earlier today. It was fine. It's okay. No sweat. Ready to go, folks?
It's all on
Yes, we
your,
are.
Okay. Good evening, folks. For the record, Larry Callie on behalf of the applicant, Mr. Patel. Mr. Chairman, I assure you that notwithstanding not being on camera, I did comb my hair for this event tonight, and I am wearing a tie, Mr. Chairman. So we are ready to go this evening. That said, folks, it's nice seeing everybody. It's been a long time since we've seen you on last applications. We appreciate you being here tonight on this. I know the Patel family does as well very much. Very simple application, folks, that we've got this evening, and we've got likely one witness, Mr. Ferrante, to testify shortly. But we do have Mr. Patel here as well to offer any testimony needed or any questions that might be within his purview from the board. Just very brief background before we get started. The Patel family owns a property on 2nd Street. It's about a half-acre lot. It's in the R20 zone. The Patel family's lived here for over 6 years in the township. Very active in the town. Mr. Patel is a coach in town, and they host in their home their in-laws, their elderly family members. Mrs. Patel's mother and father live with the Patel family along with their 2 children. So they've got a nice family living here for a number of years. Mr. Patel's been a very good neighbor in the neighborhood for years. He spoke to his neighbors about this project. In fact, we hope that several will come out this evening and support what we'll see shortly. But the Patel family is looking to do some very simple and modest accessory improvements on the property. All the improvements that are proposed are permitted under the code. It's a modest sport court so they can play some pickleball in the backyard and a swimming pool. So, everybody's been cooped up for the last few years. Everybody's trying to do amenitizing to their properties and houses. Mr. Patel is certainly no different with this limited improvement for his family in his backyard. I can tell you that there's no illumination proposed. There's no exterior amplification proposed by way of outdoor speakers or anything. This is simply recreation for the Patel family, modest recreation with this permitted accessory use. We're here before you folks this evening for the impervious coverage that's proposed. Notwithstanding the fact that we've got a sizable property, we have natural stormwater runoff controls at the rear of our property, we're still over on the coverage by a certain percentage. So Mr. Ferranti and Mr. Padaliv at E2PM, they're the scriveners of record, and you'll hear from Mr. Ferranti shortly once we swear him in and qualify him, is the preparer of the plans before the board, and he'll walk you through the proposed improvements and how we don't anticipate any undue impacts on the adjoining property owners by way of our limited niceties that we're hoping to implement here for the Patel family in the backyard. And that's essentially all we're doing here this evening, Mr. Chairman. Relatively simple fare. And if there are no questions, what I'd like to do is try and call our first and only witness, John Ferranti, now, so we can get into some of the design, the implementations, and go through some of the questions the board might have.
Mr. Ferranti, would you raise your right hand? You swear that any testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hey, John.
Before we get started, Mr. Calley, before we get started, one of the things that I'm scratching my head about this application is why the fencing along the side and the rear of the property lines is part of this application. Does that become require a bulk variance or any other kind of a variance?
It doesn't, Bob. And it's good to see you, Bob. It's been a long time.
I wish I could see you, Larry.
I look a little bit older and grayer, Bob. I'll see you soon, I'm sure. It doesn't. The only variance we're here for is the coverage that goes along with the pool and the sport court. But on Mr. Ferranti's plan, and once we swear him in, he'll walk you through it. He's showing the entirety of the site improvements on his plan, Bob. That's the reason.
Okay.
John, if you would, briefly, for the benefit of the board, can you give your background and credentials in the field of civil engineering?
Yes. Good evening. I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Newark College of Engineering and a Master of Science of Engineering, Civil Engineering from the same institution. Been practicing engineering in the state of New Jersey for over 40 years and have been a professional engineer for over 40 years. I'm licensed in five states total, and I've appeared in front of for applications such as this throughout the state of New Jersey, and been recognized as an expert witness on site planning, civil engineering issues.
And your license remains current and in good standing, John?
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, we'd offer Mr. Ferranti as an expert in the field of civil engineering to offer testimony in support of the plans that he's prepared.
I would say that's okay. I want everyone to be aware. I've been getting blocked in and out of having service and not getting parts of the hearing. So if I disappear for different points of time, keep going.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. And if we see you drop off the camera, we'll slow down and we can certainly go back as needed. No problem at all. John, utilizing your plans that were filed, and if you display anything on the screen share that's different than what was filed, even if it's just mocked up in color, let's identify it for the board so we can mark it as an exhibit this evening. But what I'd like you to do, John, is walk the board through the proposed improvements for the Patel family that I've sort of outlined at the beginning of our case here.
Yes, glad to. Would you like me to share my screen at this time, or I could introduce the application first and then share the screen?
Whatever your pleasure, John.
Can you see the drawing?
Yes, we have the cover sheet up now, John.
Excellent. Thank you. Just for the record, the application tonight is located on 159 2nd Street. It's block 424.04 and lot 29.17. As you can see from the aerial photograph. Now, my drawing that I'm showing is a colorized version. The board may not have a colorized version, so I don't know if that requires it to be marked.
Yeah, we would mark this, and council, with your permission, we'll mark this as A1 with today's date, which is the filed site plan with just some color on the sheet.
Yep, that's fine.
Very good. Thank you.
And again, this is figure 1 of a 3-set sheet. And the again, just to make sure we're all looking at the same drawing, it's revision C, dated September 2021. So revision C, 3 sheets of figures 1, 2, and 3, and currently I'm displaying figure 1, which highlights the subject property, and with the 200-foot radius for adjacent property owners. To introduce the lot, obviously the lot is 20,000 square feet, meets the minimum lot requirement, and more importantly, behind us, and you see a very large unimproved lot that contains a stormwater management facility for the I guess for the development that was constructed, and that is our boundary to the north. Before I introduce the bulk table, again, the board, it's important to sort of introduce, as Mr. Cali indicated, what we're proposing. So you can see here, this is our lot. It's 100-foot wide, and we're proposing a pool, patio, and a sports court in the rear of 1,320 square feet. Obviously, we're showing the fence, as one of the board member indicated, and the reason for that, obviously, pools require fencing, but in essence, with the existing, no improvements to the existing house, existing decks, all driveway and so forth. All we're providing is steps from the house to the patio to the pool. We aren't, again, while we're here, we're not proposing any lighting for the sport court as well as the pool, and we are over in the only variance that we have tonight is lot coverage, and obviously the ordinance for zone, and we are in the R20 zone, and the allowed impervious is 25% of the lot, and we're proposing we're at 42.6%, and so we're here for that zone. The pool is a modest sized pool, 800 square feet, and is indicated. The main reason, obviously, for the sport court is for the property owner to enjoy the rear yard, the backyard with his family. We also are, as shown on the drawing via a note, more importantly, we are proposing when we are filing this for the grading plans and so forth, to have a stormwater management facility via a dry well, and will mitigate the impacts of additional impervious. Larry, that's sort of a quick introduction. I can go to the bulk table, but the bulk table, as you can see, also will meet all the bulk requirement with the exception, and I'm zeroing in on the lot coverage, which, as you can see, 25% required. The existing lot, without any proposed improvement, was over the 25%, so it's an existing condition. But we are adding roughly, you see there, from 6,600 square feet to 8,500 square feet. So about 1,700 square feet roughly of additional impervious.
Right. So, John, before we move on to any questions of the board, so the delta here, we're talking about 1,700 square feet on this half-acre lot of proposed new impervious coverage. That's what brings us here. Let me ask you, John, just as sort of a policy matter, as an engineer, impervious coverage regulations are intended to preserve what?
Well, preserve obviously to primarily for stormwater. So the adding impervious, what happens usually is any rain that falls on the property gets shed off the property if it's not contained quicker, and thus causing and contributing to any regional stormwater flooding and so forth. So we're fortunate that the redevelopment that this property is located has a very large stormwater management facility directly behind us. In fact, there's an easement for the storm line that comes through the side yard through our property. And the property owner indicated that since he's had this property, that basin holds the storm, it's designed properly because he with all the recent rain events that we've had that everybody's familiar with, that the property owner indicated to us that it did not overtop and it handled that large storm event quite nicely. So in essence,
Yeah.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, John. I thought you were finished. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And basically, just to summarize, the impervious is to prevent runoff. It's primarily a runoff control ordinance, and you mitigate it by adding stormwater management, and we're proposing to do that.
Right. That was what I was going to get to, John, really quickly, because I know you already mentioned it, but I want to just get back to that point. So the impervious coverage is intended to control stormwater management issues on site and off site for our neighbors. Here, the proposed net change is about 1,700 square feet on this 20,000 square foot lot. Relatively nominal numerically, but it is 17.
You keep saying nominal, Mr. Cali, and frankly, you've gone from 2,500 square feet and you're almost at 5,000 square feet. So to us, it doesn't look so nominal. What you're doing is you're basically exceeding the amount of impervious coverage. You're almost doubling it. So calling it minimal, calling it modest, isn't really going to win the day here. It seems to me that there is a concern on my part anyway, that what you're proposing is not going to in any way help the impervious or help the stormwater management issue. And you're one of many houses, and if this gets passed for your house, other people may want to do the same thing.
Okay, well, we're going to finish our case, Bob, and we'll certainly entertain your questions. My opinion is 1,700 square feet is nominal as a 20-year land use practitioner, but that's my opinion, okay? And I realize you're a voting member of the board, and I just heard you loud and clear with your opinion before we even concluded the case. So we'll move on from this point right now, Bob. But, John, back to my line of questioning for you before Mr. Shepard raised his concern. 1,700 square feet is the delta, right? How are you managing that delta? I know you said it, but I'd like you to say it again for the board with these stormwater management improvements that are being proactively implemented and proposed by the applicant.
Right. The stormwater management facility that we'll add to the site will be sized to handle the total increase in impervious area. So all the additional stormwater that will be generated as a condition of the additional impervious will be managed on site and infiltrated, which is infiltration, by the way, is one of the preferred methods that DEP has in their best management plan for stormwater management. So it'll be infiltrated and into the ground, which is what DEP requires. So again, to summarize, the total increase in impervious surface that we're proposing will be managed on site, and the dry well will be sized accordingly, and we'll provide those calculations so that the board engineer can review and approve. And we'll be glad, obviously, we have the note on the drawing, so if there's a condition of approval, that'll be handled in that fashion. The other thing that we typically do, for example, on the patio, what we've done, if the board so wishes, considering that the comments that we already heard, that the board may feel that the additional impervious is a high number, the patio can be converted to a porous pavement design, which will allow stormwater to further infiltrate into the subsurface quickly, and that'll be designed in that fashion. So it's basically pavers with a wider gap between the pavers, and a lot of the municipalities that we work with use porous pavers as a design method to mitigate the additional impervious.
Regarding the proposed pool, how,
I'm sorry. I mean,
what's the deepest part of the proposed pool?
the pool, the property owner would have to answer that. We did not design the pool. We're just locating it on the site plan. That's a question more for the property owner or what he intends as far as a depth of pool and so forth.
Okay.
Would you like me to answer?
Well, let's swear,
you know
Mr. Patel. Can we just
Yeah, we'll
swear
swear
you
you
in?
in, Neil.
Can you just raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. If you could
Thank you.
answer the question now.
Hello, sir. The proposed depth at the deepest part, I believe, would be 6 feet or less, actually. So right now it's 6 feet.
Okay, thank you, Neil.
You're welcome.
John, just want to confirm that again, that there is a zero net change of stormwater, sheet flow, and runoff from our site under these proposed conditions. Is that right?
Correct. And also further to that question, if by focusing in on the site as I have on my drawing, you see the existing topography, the 93, the 92, and the 94. So the site drains towards the north, towards the basin currently, and we are not changing that. The only thing that we'll do is that the dry well will be located in a fashion that will intercept the sheet flow from the site. But obviously the additional impervious will be handled, and we, in fact, the drawings indicate that it'll be all the, again, just to summarize, and I know I'm being repetitious, but the additional impervious that's going to be added by this application will be managed via dry wells and be sized accordingly.
Thank you, John. Mr. Chairman, we have no further direct questions of Mr. Ferranti. Once we conclude with him, I'd like to call Mr. Patel to sort of give a summary in his own words as to the genesis of what brought him and his family here this evening for this application. But we'll certainly go through Mr. Ferranti's cross-examination of the board, your staff, and the public first.
I have
Mr.
a
Chairman,
couple questions.
I have a few questions, Mr. Chairman.
I have a
Well, go ahead, Bob. Go ahead, Bob.
Mr. Ferranti, explain how exactly what you're planning to do as far, where are you going to put a dry well, and how is why is the water going to move toward that dry well?
Good, great question. As I think I was trying to, in essence, the location of the dry wells will be fashioned in a variety of ways, but the most logical way for this particular property, and more importantly, I'd like to point out that there are two. There's a sanitary easement in the rear, and there's a storm easement on the right-hand side. So, typically, our natural proclivity would have been to locate the dry well at the topographic low point, but because of the two easements, so we have this area that Can you see my mouse?
I can.
So that's ideally the area that we would be locating the dry wells, and based on our initial sizing and the amount of I think one large dry well would do the trick, and the dry well would be positioned underground, so you wouldn't see it other than an inspection manhole and a clean out. So in the case in the future that the siltation can be easily removed. So the dry well will be located in this general area. The other thing that we would do is if we decide to do porous pavers, we'll add a layer of sand underneath the pavers, and the drains will be provided and piped to the dry wells. So that would facilitate the conveyance of stormwater that's infiltrating from the patio to the dry well. The proposed sport court you see there is impervious, and it's sloped, and it'll be sloped so that the surface water from there will be intercepted by the dry well.
Okay, so the proposed sport court, that's going to be, there's going to be a net across there, and they can play pickleball or something like that?
Correct. That's what my understanding, yes, that pickleball is the main interest here.
And then it'll be an impervious surface. It's not going to be clay.
No, yes, if we have a detail of that on a drawing, you can see it. I'm zooming in on the right-hand side of our drawing, and you see that there's a detail of a typical panel, if you will, of the grid, and then obviously with a detail how it will be supported, and underneath will be a thin layer of concrete to keep the surface in place.
Stabilized, yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. All right, I have no further questions.
Thank you.
I do have a question, if I may. And I apologize, maybe you touched on this and I just missed it, but the drainage easement at the rear of the property, what is that used for? Is drainage and sanitary? Is there a sanitary line running through there, drainage pipes?
That I think it's I'm not aware that. Well, we assume that there is a sanitary line. We haven't investigated to look for the pipe. So, but the assumption is that the 20-foot easement for sanitary sewer is running through the rear of the property along the entire development. If I may, I can zoom in on our aerial in Figure 1, and it's running down the back of these properties. So I've not investigated where that line would head from the development, but it's there, and obviously we have to stay away from it.
So just follow-up question to that. Who owns that easement? Is that the municipality?
Good question. I'm not.
And do
I
you
don't
have
have the answer to that question.
And then do you have legal right to develop on that easement?
Well, if I could, this is Mark Healy, if I could speak to that. The TRC in the report has indicated that the sport court needs to be out. The fencing and the sport court need to be relocated outside of those easements.
Mark, were the easements, a copy of the easements submitted with the application? Because I think to Mr. Perkanik's question is, do they even have the right to construct improvements within that easement? Obviously, you just said the recommendation is it should be moved, but that's sort of the basic question.
Well, I don't have a copy of the easements, but what I can tell you is the TRC report is comprised of, the sewer easement would be in favor of the sewer authority. The drainage easement is presumably, it does drain a township street. So that would presumably be in favor of the township because it's, again, it's draining a township street. And the TRC is comprised, as I think the board knows, of various members of the township staff, and those include representation from the Sewerage Authority and the Department of Public Works. And that report says that the fencing and the sport court needs to be removed out of those easements. So I think that, and I think, in my opinion, I think that answers the question, that they're not permitted in there.
It's a question that we'll review with the easement, but I think the property owner can see the important thing to note that this the sport court that we're proposing, but again, I'm going to refer to the cross section. If ever there was any maintenance to be done on that easement, the property owner, I'm sure, would accept as a condition of approval that he would have to remove the court to allow, whether it's the township or the county or the sewage authority, to do any work on that on that easement. So
I'd say respectfully, this report was done on November 30th. You've had several months to have this conversation with staff. And I can tell you that it's the policy of the township and the sewage authority not to allow improvements in the easements. I don't think it's fair to the board to wrestle with this issue. Again, the sewage authority and the township DPW have said in this report that those improvements need to be out of those easements.
Mark, this is Larry. I don't disagree with you. But what I'm thinking now is that not certain that relocating it and sliding it, not certain there's room for that. I think that the applicant, and I want Mr. Patel to testify shortly, I want the applicant to consider his alternatives relative to that sport court in light of the board's discussion and testimony this evening. And I don't know, and I can't make any promises for the applicant on his behalf, but I think that if the sport court were, of course, to go away, it changes our coverage as well. So it changes a lot of the dynamics of this case, right? So I think we're going to have to leave this issue for another day. We take notice of the fact that the township is of the position that there cannot be an improvement located above that 20-foot wide easement area. We know that our neighbors have structural improvements there now. We know there's a fence there now on a neighboring lot and things like that. Doesn't mean it's right, but we know that there are existing improvements along this eased area now on this street. But I think we'll have to shift the discussion a little bit this evening and just acknowledge the fact that the sport court would have to be relocated out of the easement area per the township.
Well, wait a minute. What does that mean? What are you amending your application to delete the sports court?
No, I just clearly said we're not I just clearly said, Bob, I cannot promise for the applicant that we're undoing it, thereby modifying the coverage. I just said that.
All right. Okay. I just needed to be clear. That's all.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was. I apologize.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if this goes to the applicant, but this application is for a C variance, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so what is the case for a hardship in this scenario for the improvements that are being requested?
Legally, there does not have to be a hardship for a bulk variance. There could be a benefit detriment analysis, the C2 flexible standard, and that's what we believe this case falls under.
What's the benefit? The zoning benefit to the public good. What is the zoning benefit to the public good?
Well, in my opinion, I'm not a planner. I could certainly bring a planner in, Mark, but in my opinion, it's the improvement of incidental and customary accessory improvements on a residential lot that are permitted and allowed by code.
But it's not allowed by code. That's why you need this variance.
Well, the accessory improvements are allowed. The accessory improvements are clearly allowed, the pool and the sport court. We're not here for a deviation on the use.
Okay. I don't understand how that. I don't understand how that addresses the public benefit to the public.
Well, I also can't give planning testimony, Mark. So that's my limited proffer on that issue. The question was, what's the hardship? There doesn't need to be a hardship.
Doesn't need to be a hardship, but then you are correct, and then you do need to prove the C2 flexible C that there's this is a better zoning alternative to a compliant development, and that benefit needs to go to the public good.
Well, I suspect that we're coming back with an amendment on the sport court, whether a slide, a relocation, or a removal to get it out of the eased area. So we'll have to discuss that at the next public hearing.
Okay, and I would suggest if you have a planner, my opinion, impervious coverage is not just stormwater. It's also aesthetics and community character. That there's a reason why, and this is a single family zone, half-acre lots. There's a limitation of 25% of the lot can be covered by buildings and structures. So there's a good amount of green space. So I think I would suggest that there be testimony addressing that as well.
Certainly.
So I'm just going to continue if I can. Cheryl, do you have other questions, Cheryl? I'll step back if you have other questions.
No, that was it. It was really around the benefits. So I'm done.
Okay. All right. So I just want to clarify a few things, and Bob Shepard spoke to this a little bit. Both Mr. Kelly and Mr. Fuente keep talking about the net increase of 1,700. Was there a variance for the existing coverage?
No, there were no prior applications on this. We could have Mr. Patel speak to how we are at existing conditions under his ownership.
Okay, because it's at 33% right now, so it's already 1,600 over, and then you're adding another 1,600. So I would suggest, since there wasn't a previous variance, that the net that this board needs to consider is not the 1,700 that we've been discussing, it's the 3,500 that you're over. It's the 42.6, comparing that to the 25% that's permitted, since there was not a previous variance. I don't think you can take credit, if you will, for an existing condition that's non-compliant without variances. And I think that is the extent, that's the extent of my question at this point, Mr. Chairman.
Could you please drop your screen, sir? Who's ever sharing screen, could you please drop it?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure Bob Thomas was there. I didn't know if Bob Shepherd had to take over. I see him.
Okay, I'm back on, but I would just as soon let Mr. Shepherd continue. And I missed a big chunk of the testimony. I'll watch and observe and participate that way.
Mr. Chairman, it seems like this application is incomplete at this time and it has to come back to us. So I'm not sure we have any more benefit for discussion tonight on this application.
Has the applicant agreed that he has to come back?
We think we're coming back, Mr. Chairman, for further discussion, but while we're here, we intend to continue with testimony of Mr. Patel.
Okay.
While we're here.
Yes.
Now, are we going to wait until, Mark, are we going to wait until the end of the applicant's presentation, including Mr. Patel, before we invite comment from the public?
Well, I think you can certainly open it up to questions at this point of the public of the testimony that's been provided so far, or you can wait till the end. You want to do that?
Why don't we do that?
Okay. So again, for the members of the public, this is the point to ask questions of the testimony that has been provided thus far. I think we have a few new members of the public who've popped in since I indicated the instructions at the beginning. If you're on WebEx, to use the raised hand function, click on the participants icon in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, which will open a new participants window on the right side of your screen. In the lower right-hand corner of that window will be a hand icon. Click on the hand icon. If you're calling in, press *3.
I'm hearing a lot of feedback. May I ask all the members, including the presenters, to mute yourselves so that we can hear the public clearly? Thank you.
All right, so I do have a member of the public here. The last name is Pingali. Go ahead. Oops, sorry. Oops, sorry. 1 second. Go ahead. Last name Pingali. You're unmuted.
The person with the last name C. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
So-
okay. Yeah, so I'm Neil's neighbor. I'm right across him at 156 2nd Street. So yeah, I've gone through the proposal, what Neil has presented and all.
So do you have a question regarding the testimony? Hello?
Sir,
was
you're
there a
unmuted
question?
at the time. Did you have a question for the applicant?
Question. I said I support his application.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay, okay, last name of Bose, B-O-S-E. Do you have a question regarding the testimony?
No, so I am Saugat Bose. I am Neil's neighbor on the right side of it. I am 157 2nd Street. And I'm the newest entrant into this neighborhood. Neil did share the entire plan with me. And I am here to completely support him, fully support his upgrades and all the proposed changes that he's trying to do. So he has been a great neighbor for us, and I support him thoroughly.
Okay, well, that's the type of thing that you would ordinarily say at the end when people are permitted to make a statement. But it sounds to me like you've come to the end of what you're going to say, so we'll just let that go.
Okay, any other people with questions on the testimony that's been provided? And also, if I can ask the folks who have already raised their hand to use the lower hand function so that we don't call on you again. Thank you. All right, so I'm not seeing any other members of the public with questions.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, what we'd like to do is briefly call Mr. Patel to introduce him. I'd like him to describe his application in his own words. We'll open it up to cross-examination of him. There might be more members of the public, I don't know. And then I think we'll conclude and look for a new date to come back and discuss these issues relative to the easement and move forward from there at another meeting.
Hello, members of the board. Can you hear me?
We got you, Neil.
So I am not a engineer or a lawyer. I'm a first-time homeowner with 2 small children, ages 5 and 7, who has been stuck in my house for a few years now due to the coronavirus pandemic. And we have to bring my in-laws in, as Larry mentioned earlier. And so we're doing the best we can to make it through and be outstanding citizens in my neighborhood with our neighbors, as my neighbors, as you just heard, and just try to live our lives the best way we can. I think you heard earlier from Larry, I do my best to stay as active as we can during this time in the community. I've been a baseball coach in the town for the last 2 years. I coach not only recreation baseball, but after a long time, I'm actually going to be starting a local Franklin 8 and under team as well. So trying to do whatever I can in this town, and as a first-time homeowner, do the best that I can to improve my yard so that me and my family can continue to have fun and be as safe as possible right now. So I think that I've taken care of my yard to the best of my ability. I always try to do things the proper way. When I put the deck on my yard, I made sure to follow the right process that you guys need for the town in terms of permits and other things. So try to go through all the right steps that you guys need. Because I had a pretty tough learning experience early on when I first bought my home. Again, I've never owned a home before. This is the first one when I bought this property 7 years ago now, and it took a while to build. And so there was a gentleman who's done work on many houses on this street, who did my driveway as well, who said, yeah, we'll work with the town, and I'll take care of everything. And again, he's done work on multiple homes on this street. You literally can, you could see his work happening. Said he would construct my driveway for me so that me and my family could have room to park. He did that work, and all seemed to go well. It took a little bit longer than expected, 3 months. He said everything was approved through the town, and I was naive. I didn't know any better. I assumed he was telling the truth. I have all the contracts and everything signed from him. And then even after that, I had my deck company called Deck Remodelers come in. They put in a deck. They went to the town. We had to approve everything. Everything got approved. Even at that point, I assumed everything that I had done first was accurate and up to code. Only when I brought in Mark and Larry and his team to start talking to them about my pool situation is, hey, I think we need to put in a pool and a sport court. We were looking for things to do. Things are, can't really go anywhere. And so they started reviewing the application, and the engineers, to their credit, said, hey, Neil, I think we need to go back to the town on your driveway. It just doesn't feel that it was approved. And I said, hey, man, this thing is approved. I had went, he was doing work on the street. He said he took care of everything. And at that point, I think I learned a lesson that maybe it wasn't. And so that's why we're here today with what we already have, because that work was done very early on when I moved in, plus the pool and the basketball court. So that's why I'm here today. And I hope you learned a little bit about me and why I'm here today.
Thank you, Neil.
I'm open to any questions, of course.
Okay, now, I have a question for our attorney. The applicant has now asked for, I guess, an adjournment, so that they can examine the issues that we have raised here today. Is there any problem with us giving them an adjournment so that they can review this and come back?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's the applicant's prerogative. I mean, it's their application. So if they ask the board to have the application carried to, a date certain, to come back with additional testimony, additional information, revised plans, whatever it may be, it's absolutely proper.
Okay. Does anyone have any objection if we give this applicant an extension of time?
No.
Okay, well
Don't
then,
redo the survey though. That's so that we have a proper survey.
well, that would be one thing that they would need to do, it seems to me. Yeah.
Well, John, your plan's based on an underlying survey, correct?
John, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yes. It's
Right,
based
so-
on survey.
Right.
Can you hear me?
We got you, John. Yes. Your answer was yes, that there is a survey upon which this variance plan is based.
But we could add it to the application if the board likes as well.
I think that at least one of our board members would like to see that, so that's something that should be included. So, Christine, can you give us a new date?
Yes, the next available date for any application would be April 22nd, 2022.
Wow. That's it's crazy. We're talking about the springtime already. April 22nd, Christine, is a Friday.
April 21st, 2022.
April 21st. Okay.
Correct.
If that's the next available, we'll take that, Christine. Thank you.
Okay. Larry, I'm going to need a letter of it.
Sure. Extending time to act. No problem.
Hold on a minute, please. Okay, Larry, give Mark and I an opportunity to look at it. He's trying to make it so that you don't have to renotice. Hold on a second, because we may be going from virtual, but just give me a minute.
Sure. Thank you, Christine. I appreciate that.
Larry, this is Frank Regan, the board attorney. If for some reason the applicant is going to continue to propose the sport court within the easement area, we'd like to see a copy of the easement. Obviously, the recommendation is to move it out of there, but I know you don't want to make that decision on the spot. But if you happen to, when you do come back or the applicant comes back and you're proposing that improvement, I would request that you submit a copy of the easement.
Certainly, Frank, you got it. As soon as I get it, I'll share it with you and we can go through it and see what it contains and doesn't contain. But absolutely. Seems like we have time. So that's the upside of this, I suppose.
A lot of time.
Goes fast, though.
Now the applicant is going to use the sport court for pickleball?
That's correct. That's the intent. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm a regular pickleball player. I hope he explains to his neighbors the noise that the pickleball makes on the court. He can demonstrate that. I hope his neighbors know the noise that the pickleball makes on the court.
I think they'll
Larry?
want to play with me.
Yeah. Hi, Christine. I'm sorry. I hear you, Christine.
Okay. So we're gonna try to squeeze, we're going to squeeze you in on March 3rd. You'll be the first hearing, so please have your stuff ready, because we do have other hearings that evening. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Make it ready so that, give
Sure.
us whatever we need to have. If your professionals are going to provide exhibits, please get that to us as soon as possible so we can get that up on the system. And if there's no objection from Mark or the attorney, if you get them to me, I will make sure I get them to the board members so that they can be versed on it, so that it's not new, fresh when your professionals present it that evening. That will also help it move right along. Is that
Sure.
acceptable to you?
Absolutely, Christine. Thank you. Do we expect March 3rd to be virtual, or we don't know yet?
It will definitely be virtual.
It will be. Okay. So that
Yeah,
clears up the notice.
that's what we're trying to
Okay.
help you do so that you don't have to renotice.
As we sit here now, we've been told we're virtual through March.
Okay. Very good.
I might need an extension letter, Larry. Let me just look. I have you.
I could send you one either way, Christine. It's not a problem.
Yeah,
For that hearing.
No. Actually, you're good until 3/9, and the meeting will be through 3, so you should be okay with that.
Christine, you're good.
Yeah, did you want me to do that now? All right.
Will there be planner testimony?
Larry? Larry?
That was the understanding.
Larry Callie? Mr. Ferretti, could you answer that question?
Yeah, I thought that Larry had indicated earlier that there'll be a planner to answer some of those questions that were raised.
Yeah. Can you hear me now, folks?
Yeah, we could now.
Yep. Yeah. We intend on bringing back a planner, Christine.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Callie before I bring up the screen for the viewers? I don't want to cut anybody off. Everybody's okay? Okay, Mark, I don't have the sharing capability. Okay, for the members of the public, what I'm doing now is bringing up the new meeting date so that you have the link information, and I will read it across as soon as I get it to come down. Okay. Okay, for those members of the public that wish to take part in this hearing that's being moved to March 3rd, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. virtual meeting, you can sign in at franklinTWPNJ.org/home/components/calendar/event. Could everybody mute themselves, please, because there's background noise and the public needs to hear this? /calendar/event/19232/2193. That will open to the Franklin Township link. And on that link that I just lost, you will be able to see the, why does it keep doing that? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so when you bring up the Franklin Township website at the link I just provided to you, you see the big event address that you can click on if you're coming in through virtually. If you need to call in, the phone number is 140-418-9388, and your access code for that meeting will be 2343-342-6297. If you have any problems getting in, or if you have any other questions, you can reach me at 732-873-2500, and my extension is 6215. Also, my email happens to be up on the screen there, christine.woodbury@franklinnj.gov. Okay, whichever Bob is taking over, you can continue the meeting. Bob, you're on mute.
Well, if the chairman's here, we'll let the chairman take over. All right,
Yes,
sorry.
I appreciate everybody continuing the way you did. I don't know what happened with the computer, but if there's nothing